Hi friends. So around a week or so back, around 10 days back, Supreme Court has given a important judgment regarding the affidavit, regarding the people, candidates who got criminal cases pending against them and who are contesting elections. So it is a long checkered history. So somewhere around 1999, Association of Democratic Reforms, ADR, an NGO which have been in the forefront for decriminalisation of politics in India, has filed a case in Supreme Court, and the judgment came in 2004. And for the first time, Supreme Court acknowledged that this is a major problem, and then directed the election commission that all the candidates who are contesting elections have to file affidavits. In the affidavits, which is has to be done before the returning officer, they have to give the information about any criminal cases pending against them which have been taken cognizance by the court. And apart from that, they also have to furnish details about their educational qualification, about their assets and liabilities of themselves, their spouse and their dependents. So all this Supreme Court has said as electoral reforms under Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution, under which the Supreme Court said it's a fundamental right of the people who are going to elect people to represent them, MPs or MLAs. So under this broader category of right to know, Supreme Court said we should know the information, financial information about the candidates, about the criminal cases, about educational qualifications, etc. So, but in fact, this has not brought in any desired results. As we know, in 2000, every year, in fact, in spite of this judgment, every single election, Lok Sabha election, we see more and more people having criminal antecedents are elected as MPs and MLAs. In 2004, for example, the Lok Sabha election, the number of MPs elected with criminal cases pending against them was 24%. Then it became 30% in 2009 elections, and 2014 elections around 34%, and 2019 election 42 or 43%. All data given by Association of Democratic Reforms based on the affidavits filed by the candidates. And what happened was, the political parties and the candidates find ways to cheat the system, and many times because filing a false affidavit is a criminal activity under section 191 of IPC. So instead of giving details, they just started not filling up the column also. So that also happened. So in 2013, Supreme Court said that if a candidate has not filled any column, you cannot leave any column blank now. So if you know cases pending against you, you should say it is nil or NA not applicable. And you cannot leave any column blank. If any column is left blank, the returning officer can reject that nomination. It is incomplete nomination and he has the powers to reject the nomination. So they have to now fill it up. And then in 2018, another PAL was filed in the Supreme Court, and because this number of candidates with criminal cases pending against them has been always on the increase. In fact, even in the recently concluded Delhi Assembly elections, more than 100 candidates who contested elections had criminal cases pending against them, and more than 25 people have cases, heinous cases also pending against them. And at least around more than 40 candidates who have been finally elected out of 70 have got criminal cases pending against them. So the system is being manipulated by political parties and the candidates and who got elected also. So therefore, 2018 Supreme Court said that if any candidate who's filing obviously has criminal antecedents, then the political party which has nominated that person must give advertisements in newspapers stating the reason that the person whom they have given the seat to contest the elections. They must say that he or she has a criminal cases pending, and the reasons why in spite of that, the party has given that person the right to contest the elections. So, but it was not really followed in the sense that there are many small newspapers with no circulation at all which exist for this kind of purposes. So political parties circumvented this judgment also. So a contempt of court was filed in Supreme Court in 2019, and for that Supreme Court has come up with the judgment in February 2020. And the Supreme Court said yes, it is definitely they are trying to circumvent the whole thing, and made this condition now more stringent. Now this information has to be published by the political party within 24 hours in one national newspaper which is in English, and one vernacular local newspaper, and also in their website, and also in the social media also. And they have to give the reasons stating in spite of the criminal antecedents, and but not about the winnability. That is not the criteria. What are the reasons, the merits of the achievements of the person which warranted the political party to give the permission to contest on its symbol, though knowing well that the person is facing criminal charges which has been already taken cognizance by a court. So Supreme Court said this is mandatory, and within 72 hours of giving the seat, they should give a file and action report also with the Election Commission, attaching all the advertisements they are given, and the social media also they should give. So if anybody, if they are not filed it, then Election Commission can forward a case to Supreme Court saying that this is in contempt of court, right? So now question marks whether this will bring the desired results, or whether this is a step in the right direction. A lot of question marks are there. So in fact, another case, last week Supreme Court has reserved the final judgment on one another case. Mr. Devendra Fadnavis was the CM of Maharashtra. In 2014, when he filed an affidavit, later he became the CM after winning the elections from one constituency in Nagpur. He did not give information about two cases which are pending against him, one filed in 1996, another filed in 1998. One on forgery and other on some cheating, election cheating or something like that. Two cases which have been pending for a long time, he has not given the information. And one lawyer has said this is violating Supreme Court judgment, but no action has been taken by the local courts. But he already has become CM, and he has no action. The courts rejected this. Then he went to Bombay High Court, which has also rejected it. But in October 2019, Supreme Court said the prima facie there seems to be a violation, and a case should be filed against Mr. Devendra Fadnavis. Why he has not given that information? So Mr. Fadnavis has asked for a review of the case, and again went to Supreme Court. And Supreme Court has now heard all the arguments for whether to allow the review, and now reserved the judgment. I hope Supreme Court takes a proper view of the case, and definitely people who are filing false affidavits should be taken. But at present, what is the punishment for people who file false affidavits? Okay, let me first talk about the recent Supreme Court judgment, then I come to the false affidavit part of it. Supreme Court, yes, right to know is a fundamental right of the people. We should know about the candidates. But when the ruling party in power can file false cases also against political opponents, this is very much a reality in today's India. So that also has to be taken into account. So probably we need to change the law. If anybody is facing any case which is punishable above 2 years under IPC, probably that needs to be published. So for example, if I am protesting, or anyone is protesting, and peacefully also, the police can file fake cases, and then there will be that stigma is getting attached to you. So there has to be a clear distinction between such cases of political nature and real criminal cases, particularly heinous cases which warrant punishment of above 7 years, like rape or murder or kidnapping, etc. We need to distinguish both. So we need to remove the criminals from the system, but at the same time should not harass the genuine people who are fighting against the malpractices in the system. Because false cases can be put by the police anytime, and courts are also pretty compliant, and they can easily take cognizance of the case also. So we need to modify the case. Second, I think we are putting this judgment unnecessary burden on the political parties. So what about the independent candidates? If the criminal cases are pending against them, then are they required to publish in the newspapers or stuff like that? It is not clear. And there has to be a sense of fair play and natural law. So if that is not needed for an independent candidate or an unrecognized political party, why it is needed for a candidate from a recognized political party? So why put the burden on the political parties? So therefore burden should be shifted to Election Commission. Election Commission should publicize in its website. If the Election Commission, once the time frame for withdrawal of the nomination is over, still the people with the criminal cases pending against them or contesting elections can give a full page advertisement in the newspaper. And Supreme Court said that winnability of the candidate should not be a criteria when the political parties give justification why they have appointed, is going against, in my opinion, the very grain of democracy. Democracy is all about winning elections, whether you like it or not. There are many negative things about democracy, but there are many positive things. Therefore, we are sticking up with democracy. Aristotle once famously said that democracy is the worst possible system what we know, but unfortunately, we have not yet come up with a better system than democracy. So I think the burden should be on the Election Commission, and I think already very good work has been done by agencies like ADR to publicize all this and bringing into the awareness of the people. And now coming to filing the false affidavit. Section 125A of the Representation of People's Act now gives the punishment for filing false affidavit, that is 6 months jail sentence. But the 244th Law Commission report very clearly says that this is not enough. On one side, ADR says that if anybody, because an elected MP or MLA can be disqualified by if later the courts give a judgment to that person that he is guilty and is punished for more than 2 years jail sentence has been given, then the MLA post he can be removed from the post by the Election Commission on the orders of President or Governor. So this needs to be changed. So the ADR says that anybody who is facing a criminal case in which the minimum punishment is above 2 years should not be even allowed to contest. But I think that is against the jurisprudence principle, criminal jurisprudence principle followed in Indian law, which presumes that the accused is innocent till proved otherwise by a proper court. So we should not dilute that, but there are two separate things. The basis of jurisprudence principles and natural law, every person has the right to represent himself in the court and prove that he is innocent. Beyond reasonable doubt, the prosecution has to prove that the accused person has committed the crime. So we should not dilute the jurisprudence principle. But at the same time, 244th Law Commission has given a beautiful judgment, this thing. They say that the punishment for filing false affidavits, like in the case of Fadnavis, was not given mentioned the two cases already pending against him in the election affidavit in 2014. Now the present punishment is 6 months jail sentence, should be increased to not less than 2 years. So automatically, if a person is convicted under this offence for filing false affidavit, then even if he is elected, then he can be disqualified immediately. Secondly, this should be made as a criminal practice under the RP Act, under Section 120 of the Criminal Act, so that the person will be banned from contesting elections for a few years. So this, and one more important thing is, now Election Commission, for example, Mr. Fadnavis filed a wrong affidavit and He doesn't deny that he has not, whatever filed is right, and there is no verification mechanism. For example, in a Lok Sabha election, all over India, in a general election, almost 10, well, there are 545 constituencies, and assuming that 10 people contest in each constituency. Last Lok Sabha election 2019, more than 7,000 people contested. So it is impossible for election commission to find out that everybody has filed the right affidavit in a short period of time. So the 2244th Law Commission also suggested that there must be an independent mechanism to verify all the details which are given by that. So this can be easily done in the era of so-called digital governance, etc. It is not that the election commission, which doesn't have many staff and all that, may not be possible. But again, ADR kind of organizations can be roped in to verify whether the candidates are filing the right affidavit or not. And the issue of false affidavits is a big crime which is happening in India. In fact, Mr. Modi, during his elections in Gujarat Assembly, said he is unmarried. But in 2014, suddenly he stated that he is married. And there are also big question marks over the affidavits he has been filing in every election, that he has done MA, BA Political Science Correspondence course from Delhi University, and later MA Correspondence course, MA Correspondence or not, I am not sure, from Gujarat University, Ahmedabad University. And various RTI has been filed first to the university is concerned. They have refused to give information, and later to election commission it has also not given information. RTI has been filed to PMO, which has also failed. Everybody is passing the buck. What is the real educational status? Even though the constitution doesn't say any educational qualification for anybody elected, it is under right to know people should, because that's what Supreme Court said in 2004, and the concerned people should be made accountable for that. So when it is, then there is no accountability, and the big people escape the law, and we cannot, there's a rule of law says that it should be same. Any person who files a false affidavit must be punished under the present circumstances. 6 months jail sentence. 244th Law Commission says should be increased to 2 years, and that person should be disqualified if proved, and is also should be a criminal practice and should not be allowed to contest election for the next 6 years. There should be an independent verifiable mechanism. So all this seems very, very legitimate to me. Of course, there is another issue of Mrs. Smriti Irani. She claimed once that some 2004 elections or so, she's a BCom graduate. Now she says that she files that she has completed only part 1 of BCom in correspondence. There is no degree called part 1 BCom. Either you are studied 10th standard or 12th standard, or you have completed degree. You cannot say that I have one particular exam I have to pass, and after that I will get a degree and all those things. You can put all that in your marriage degree. You can put BCom and above within bracket or above 1 dash also you can put it. But it is a serious affidavit. This is considered as an oath, and filing of this is a wrong oath is punishable under IPC also. So there are so many inconsistencies in the law. Why the concerned people are not ready to provide their educational qualification? This is a very simple thing. You can do that. So I think it's high time that Supreme Court comes down heavily on the people, but at the same time not violating the natural law. And it's time that we start implementing the 244th Law Commission report on false affidavits. At the same time, Election Commission should play a more proactive role, so that to weed the real criminal elements from the electoral system. And many times these criminal elements employ gundas to threaten the voters. They have so much of power. This needs to be curbed. But I feel that, as I said, there is some modification needed also in the Supreme Court. I hope Supreme Court will give a proper judgment in the Fadnavis case also. And since even RTA is not properly implemented, we cannot even know the educational qualification of the most powerful politician in India. It's high time that Supreme Court steps in and sets right the whole thing. Anyway, bye, take care.